Hello everyone, and this is an introduction to Embergen. So Embergen is a real-time pyro simulation software which is being developed by a company called Janga FX. So I sadly can't open up the website because I don't have internet. So I can't really show you the website. But the software is currently in alpha, but it's pretty solid. Like I haven't had a single crash in the entire week that I have been using it. And the alpha version or the current version is free. Okay, so you can just download it and sort of play around with it. If you decide to buy it and support the development, then you can also export VDB files. Okay, with the free version you can't export VDB, but with the paid version you can. Okay, so the point is you can sort of build simulations in here and then export it to any software that you want as long as it supports VDB files. Okay, so that makes it really good. Now, this is, as I said, is going to be a basic introduction. So we're going to go through the interface, look at the basic parameters, and then towards the end, I'll just make like a simple explosion. So you get like a general idea of how to do things. Okay, so to get started, when I said like this is a real-time software, I actually mean it's a real-time software. So as you move, as you modify any parameter, you will actually see it, update in real time. Again, overall pretty solid. Like I haven't really had, any crashes so far. Okay, so the interface is fairly simple. Like there's a node graph, but the node graph is in development. So you can see the nodes, but they're not really connected at the moment. I guess they're connected in the background, but on the foreground, you don't see anything. So you have the emitter, which will give you parameters for, your basic emitter. You have simulation, visualization, and then capture. So capture allows you to basically export flipbooks. So visualization has all your rendering stuff, and then simulation has all the major parameters for the simulation work. Then you have the parameter window down here, and then which says like, node info. And then this is your timeline. So if you want to animate anything, this is your timeline. And then finally you have the viewport over here, which navigation is fairly simple. Like left click allows you to orbit, middle allows you to pan, and then the scroll will zoom in, zoom out. So you can, work it that way. And then you have different options up here. So you can, you can have a preview. You can like see motion vectors, temperature, any particular channel. You can also do like 6-point lighting. So I guess this is useful when you want to light it up in post. So that makes it better. And then that's primarily it. Like it's a pretty simple interface. It's not complicated at all. Okay, so right now you can't import any kind of custom emission geometry. So like you can't import, or at least I haven't figured out a way to do it. Okay, but eventually you will be able to. As I said, the software is in alpha. It's like alpha version 0.2.4. Okay, so it's very early stage alpha. But eventually I guess, you'll be able to import geometry for emission and collision work. Like that shouldn't be a problem at all. Okay, so just to get started, like it's fairly simple. So you have, starting with the emitter. So you have different types of emitters. So you can have a sphere, you can have a box, you can define the size of the box. So the great thing is because it is completely real time, it doesn't feel complicated. Like it is a huge, like the parameter list is pretty huge, but because all the stuff happens in real time, it's not like, okay, change a parameter, then resimulate, then change the parameter, then resimulate. You don't need to do any of that. You change a parameter, it happens, automatically. So you don't need to worry about it. You can also rotate the objects around, any which way you feel like. And then the R over here allows you to reset it. Okay, so if you rotate it and you don't really like it, you can just press R and it will reset to, the previous value. And then you can also give it some noise. So you can define, you can add some noise to your emitter. You can define the scale of the noise. And then you can also define the speed at which it will sort of, the noise amplitude or the noise offset essentially. Okay. And then you also have noise shape. So yeah, let me just go back to 0 with that. And then lastly, you have this the like next to every parameter name is this value called 0. So if you take this to 2, it will be exposed in the timeline. Okay, and then you can keyframe it. But we'll talk about keyframing in the end. So yeah, so when it's 0, you just see it here, and then when you press 1, I think this is for the node graph, and then if you press 2, then it will go into, you can animate that particular value. Okay, then yeah, let me just go back to sphere, or you can have like torus, whatever you want. So yeah, let's just go back to sphere. Okay, then you can have different types of forces. You can have like a directional force and then increase the force strength. So by default, it's going in the z-axis, which is upwards, but let's just make it, 1 in y-axis. See. So you can define force strength, you can define force randomness, and randomness scale. So you can do stuff like that. And then you have like other things here. So you have different types of forces. You have directional, you have rotational, so you can do things like this. You can have centrifugal. So you have like multiple types of forces. Okay, and any of these values can be animated. So that's not a problem. Then you have temperature strength, so how much the fire is going to burn. Again, like this is a great way to learn a simulation software, because the interesting thing is that a lot of these parameters are kind of similar in most simulation softwares, except since this does it real time, you kind of get an understanding a lot faster. And then you have like smoke strength, and you have fuel strength, like how much fuel is there. So if you remove the fuel altogether, it just stops burning. And then you have like pulse activation. So you can also animate this if you wanted to, So if you want to like stop the emission altogether, you can just remove the pulse activation. Okay, and then you also have this option here called vector field. So you can load up vector fields. I don't know if they provide any vector fields. I don't think so. Yeah, no, they don't have any vector fields that you can use. But yeah, like if you, they have a second software which generates vector fields. Okay, so you can always like make a custom vector field and then load it up into this. So you have, those options as well. Okay, then you come to the major area, which is your simulation. So here you can set the size of your box. Okay, like the voxel box that is needed to calculate the smoke simulation. By default, this is the value it's kept at, which is what we're going to keep it. But if you want a higher res smoke simulation, you can modify these values. Then you have different types. So you can have like simple, which is just like basic fire and smoke. You can have like a proper combustion model, which is more like a pyro simulation. And then you can just have like colored smoke, which is nothing but just smoke. So let's keep it to combustion. Then you have time step, which is like, how fast or how slow you want it. Like if I make it really slow, see, so now it's like super slow motion. And again, like if you've forgotten the value, just press R and it'll go back to normal. Then you have different advection types. So again, like I guess if you understand the math behind it, these will make some sense to you. Default is kept to Euler. I think that's good enough. You can try other things as well. Some of them don't really do too much, but yeah, most of them end up looking the same. I guess with certain things it will change, but a lot of it remains the same. Okay, then you have other things like you have advection offset. So, like if you wanted to fall down or go up really fast, see, you can do things like that. You can define like how much oxygen is there in the fire, like if it's really low. And then combustion temperature. Okay, so if it's too high, that means it burns very less. Okay, and if it's too low, then it's burning a lot. Then you have the temperature gain. So you can have like a very big fire or a very small fire. And then you can, the more this increases, like the combustion flame gain, if you make it 0, again, like it just kills off the fire altogether. Okay, and when you increase it, you get more flames, you also get more smoke. And then you have fuel loss, like how quickly the fire burns out. You have like extinction flame loss. Again, like if you increase the flame loss, you also end up losing the smoke. So if I make it really low, so you'll get more smoke now. Then you have smoke temperature, which again, if we can lower this, see. So if you increase it more, you get like like it sort of eats up the fire completely. And then you have like the smoke gain, like how much more. Like if you reduce it again, you just have flames. If you increase it a lot, you have a lot of smoke. Okay, then you have velocity drag, so you can just sort of slow it down. And you have cooling, so you can like, the lower the cooling is, like the more the fire tends to burn. And the more it also rises. And then you have like the flames cooling. So some of these I think, yeah, so then, okay, let's go to smoke dissipation. So smoke dissipation is like, okay, like if it's really low, the smoke doesn't die out at all. See, you have like a lot of smoke. And then the more you increase this, so you can really sort of kill it. And then you have like flames dissipation. So both those in combination, you can kill off the smoke really quickly. And then you have like fuel dissipation, which doesn't seem to do too much. And then you have force dissipation, which is like, if you just want to kill off the force, so you can see like at a certain level, it just starts to dissipate completely. Okay, then you have other things like you have like smoke buoyancy. So if you need it to rise more, you can also have the smoke weight. Let's lower the dissipation. Yeah, there we go. You also have like fuel buoyancy. So again, like it gets you to rise up faster. And then you have like the fuel weight. So you have like things that you can try out. Let me lower the fuel buoyancy. Okay, and then finally you have like vorticity, which makes it more noisy. Like if it's 0, then it's just like very smooth. Okay, so you can sort of like, so this is like if you want to do like a candle or something, you can do something like that. And you can increase the vorticity to make it more noisy. You can also have like smoke surface vorticity. So now it's only like the, the surface of the smoke is noisy, or you can have like temperature surface vorticity. So you have like different options that you can use. If you wanted to go negative, okay, you can modify the gravity multiplier. So if I make the gravity multiplier -1, then it will fall down. And then what you can do is you can turn on the blocking ground. So then it will sort of, impact with the ground. And then let's increase the vorticity a little bit. See, there you go. Okay. So you can do stuff like that. We can also try to adjust like that advection value into negative. No, sorry. Yeah, let's go to positive. See, so if you want to do like, like a rocket taking off or something, or just like a jet exhaust. So you can do stuff like that. And let's just try to adjust this. Yeah, we'll just adjust the smoke dissipation. So yeah, so you can do, you can do a lot of stuff with this. And as I said, because it is real time, it's much more easier for you to just sort of like, play around with it and get a result that you want. Okay, so let's get the gravity back to 1. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, then you have wind direction, so you can add some wind to it if you want. And then you can also add like some wind chaos. So if I increase this, you'll get like, yeah, it goes a little crazy. Okay, so you want to sort of like just adjust a little bit. And then you can also do other things, like you can do shredding. Okay, so you can like, these are like if you're coming from a Houdini background, these are parameter names that you know. So they do kind of do the same thing. So if shredding, you have disturbance, you can add disturbance. And then finally, you can also do this thing called force tightness, which again just sort of like, tightens up the whole thing. You can also keep your mouse on anything and it shows you like a tooltip. Okay, so on any name, if you keep the mouse, it will show you the tooltip. And then finally you can do diffusion, which is you can like, do smoke diffusion. See, so it sort of blurs. Diffusion is blurring essentially, so if you want to blur it out, we can sort of just blur it out. Let's try to blur the temperature. Yeah, so you can sort of like smoothen those out. Okay, lastly, let's come to visualization. Okay, now again, I don't have the paid version, so I can't export to VDB. But I think I'm going to pick it up soon enough. So I'll do another video where we can export a VDB file and then, bring it into another software. Okay, lastly we have visualization. Okay, so visualization, you have the basic light here. So you can define the light angle and the elevation, and then you can define the light color. Let's do one thing before we come to that. Yeah, let me just lower the intensity of the fire. Yeah, so you can lower like the black body intensity, and then we can do things like you can define like the shadow color to whatever you want. Okay, you can define the light color. Okay, you can define shadow softness, and also like the attenuation in the shadow. And then you can also turn on like ambient shadowing, so you can sort of adjust that. And you have like the ground shadow, so if you don't want any shadow on the ground, we can sort of just get rid of it. Let's do one thing. Let's come to the emitter, and I'll put it very close to the ground. Yeah, I think this is okay. And let's come into the simulation and turn on, okay, blocking ground is on, which is fine. Okay, this is good. Okay, so then you can also do other things, like if you come into the renderer properties, you can define like the dense color. So this is color of the smoke, okay? Or let's just increase that. See, so you can define like the color of the smoke. You can define scattering intensity, so it sort of really lights up. Fuel scattering intensity, and then the overall scattering radius, okay? And then you can adjust the exposure value of the overall image. You can do color vibrance, so if you wanted black and white or you wanted like really colored, you can define the temperature of the fire and the maximum temperature. So if you wanted to go more bluish, you can sort of like, adjust it here. And then you have like the fuel density, see, so you can sort of adjust the scale of the fuel density. And then you have like the smoke density. And then you have like tone mapping over here. Like towards the end, you have like tone mapping. So you can have like clamped or linear or ACES, or you can do like Hebel or Reinhardt. So different types of tone maps. And then finally, you can also define like you don't want to render the flames or you don't want to render the smoke. Okay, so you can sort of like define that. You can have the bloom. So basic stuff, you can just, sort of try it out and see what works. Okay, so let's do one thing. As a final thing, I'll just make like a simple explosion. Okay, so you get an idea of how to do something like that. So I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to create a new file so we can just start from scratch. And I'm going to keep it fairly close to the ground. Yeah, so what I want to do is I want to animate the radius and the fuel strength. Okay, because if the fuel strength is 0, you don't have any fire, and then you can sort of, So the way to do it is we will click on the 0 and get it to 2, and in the fuel strength also we'll get it to 2. And then just if you want to just see a specific timeline, because otherwise it keeps rolling, so it's going on till infinity, what we can do is we can turn on loop over here, and then we'll just make it about I think 240 frames is fine. So what I want to do is we will middle click here to add a keyframe. So first we'll do it for the radius. So I'll add 3 keyframes. And what I want to do is I want 1 to be 0, and I want the third keyframe to be 0 as well. So what you should get is this. And let's make it slightly bigger. So I'll make it 0.25. Let's make it about, yeah, okay. Let's make it about 150 frames. Yeah, okay, so this is good. And then the same thing, I want to just sort of, animate the fuel strength as well. So I want to start with 0. And I want this to be 0 as well. And in the middle, I want to bring it up all the way to 1. Yeah, okay, or actually, no, slightly lesser. Okay, so you can do something like that. Let's make this slightly smaller. Okay, so one of the things I want to do now is let's take the smoke strength and make it say 10. You can go higher, like the smoke you can go to higher values. And then come to the simulation, I'm going to block the ground. Okay, so just turn on blocking ground. Yeah, so you'll get like, something slightly better. Okay, now let's come to the simulation and we'll start adjusting a few things. So firstly, I want to lower the smoke dissipation. So I have like more smoke. There we go. Let's get this to about 240. Yeah, and maybe lower the fuel amount a little bit. Let me adjust the emitter. I think it's in the ground, so let me just take it slightly higher. Yeah, okay, this isn't bad. Okay, now let's also do one thing. Let's try to adjust a few other things. So I'll add more oxygen, and I'll also sort of, like increase the temperature gain. Yeah, there you go. I think that looks a lot better. Perfect. And then you can also increase the flames gain to get more. Like if you lower the flames, then you will, like, the smoke dies out sooner. So we'll increase this. So we have like more smoke. And then yeah, increase the, now depending on how much smoke you want. So we can adjust the smoke gain. Yeah, that looks nice. Okay, let's lower the temperature gain a little bit. Wow, okay. Yeah. What we can also do with the emitter is we can also add a little bit of noise into it. So let's give it a noise of 2. So yeah, you'll get like a little bit of variation into it. And let's try to increase the cooling and see what we get. Yeah, I think this is better. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Reset this. Yeah, I think the temperature gain was nice. So we can just adjust that a little bit. Okay, let's go a little higher. Let's go to about 400 frames. Yeah, there you go. That's nice. Okay. And then you can adjust like the smoke buoyancy. So if you wanted to rise even more, see, so now you have like or you can like lower it so it doesn't rise as much. Yeah, see, so now it doesn't rise as much. And then we can finally add a little bit of smoke vorticity. Okay. So there you go, see. Yeah. And yeah, we can add a little bit of disturbance, see what we get. Yeah, perfect. There we go. So yeah, not the best explosion that you can make, but it gives you a general idea of what you can do with this. And it's really effective and really, easy to work with, which is probably the greatest thing about it, because it's so simple to sort of work with. You can sort of play around and get different results, very quickly. Yeah, so that's basically it. So this is a very simple introduction to Embergen. As I said, you can go to the website and you can download it for free. And if you like it and if you find it useful, you can buy the basic version, and that will allow you to export VDB files and everything. So that is really useful. Okay. And yeah, I will do another. I made a couple more examples. So I'll do another video where I can just do like a few examples of different things that you can do with Embergen. And hopefully if I pick up the full version, then I can also do like a VDB export and show you how to do that as well. Now, final thing, if you want to reset the simulation or stop it or anything, you have options up here in the edit. Okay, so if you want to pause it, you can press spacebar to pause it. Z will allow you to move through the simulation. Okay, and then C allows you to reset the camera. and R allows you to reset the simulation, because I don't want to reset the simulation, so I won't do that. But yeah, you can just like, those are the basic commands. And the final thing is, one of the good things is that when you install it, you get a whole bunch of preset files with it. So if you just want to learn how to do things, you can just open up one of these files and see what they're animating and what the parameters are, and you can just check those out. So it's pretty simple. Like let's say as a final thing, if I decide to add like a rotational force to this, and we can just increase the force strength. So I don't know what we'll get. Yeah, see, so it sort of like spins around. Or we can try like centrifugal. I don't know what centrifugal will do. Yeah. Or if you just want to do directional and like have it shoot up more. See, so now it's sort of, whoa, that looks nice. And you can also try to do like randomness in the force. So yeah, that's primarily it. So this is Embergen. So if you have any questions regarding this, I'll try my best to answer. As I said, it's not very complicated. And hopefully I'll do another video next week, and I'll cover a few more examples of it. So yeah, that's basically it.